Hi, and welcome to the next education video. As a starter activity, let's just see if we can remember what the following things mean. Formal socialization, social control, equality of opportunity, vocationalism, hidden curriculum, and meritocracy. Okay, so I'll pause here. You pause while you write down your answers to those, and then when you've done that, unpause, and then we'll see what the answers were. Okay, pause now. Okay, so hopefully you've unpaused, and let's look at the answers. So formal socialization is where we deliberately set out to influence someone's behavior through socializing them into the norms and values, possibly through a formal program like education, for example. Social control is the way that the social rules of the culture that you live in affect your behavior. Equality of opportunity. Everyone in our society having the same chances, and particularly the same access to those chances. Vocationalism is the idea that something might prepare you for work rather than just being academic. Hidden curriculum is the values that are passed on by schools without people realizing it. Okay, so perhaps coming into a room and standing until a teacher asks you to sit, or when someone comes into a room, automatically standing when you see that someone's come in. Not on the curriculum, but just manners and politeness things that we learn, even though we're not sure why. And finally, meritocracy, the belief that the best people will do well in education and therefore they will rise to the top and get the best jobs. So when we're looking at the extent to which children have equality of opportunity in British schools, the thing we want to look at next is, are schools equally good? Because if they are, then it doesn't matter so much about which school you go to in order for everyone to have equal opportunity. But if schools are not all equally good, then that will have an impact on the equality of opportunity that's available to children up and down the country. So we're reminding ourselves that we want to understand that children have very different experiences of education. We want to understand that there are many factors affecting how well children do in school, and a lot of these are social factors from outside school. They're not intellectual or academic. They're things that affect how well you do in school, but they're from society, family, etc. And we want to look at for what are those social characteristics that come from outside that mean it's more likely that children will succeed or fail. So the problem for government is that whenever we look at education statistics, we can see that there's a problem that in British education, it looks like the system favours members of some social groups, and so they do well, and that others are quite significantly disadvantaged. So what can we do about that? And if you were the government, what would you do? Certain individuals can do well if they come from disadvantaged groups, but in general, the pattern of evidence suggests they will have to work harder to succeed. Okay, so just because you come from a disadvantaged group, it's not impossible for you to do well, but you'll have to work harder as a result. Equally, if you come from an advantaged group, it's not guaranteed that you'll do well, but you have to do quite badly in order to fail, and lose that advantage. So government policy has been, since the 1980s, focused on trying to improve schools by offering parents more choice about which schools they should send their children to, and the idea of developing competition between schools so that schools compete for pupils, and they compete by trying to provide the best service. This has led to a variety of schools and school systems developing, particularly in English cities. Okay, we have some variety in Wales, but England is the main hotbed of variety. And in a previous lesson, we looked at the different types of schools, like free schools, academy schools, specialist schools, faith schools, grammar schools, and comprehensive schools, etc. Not all of those are available in Wales. So government policies have encouraged competition. And they've done this by publishing things like league table results. So they've tried to rank all the schools in order so that you can easily see which ones are the best. But you can imagine that there might be problems with that, because what exactly are you using to rank different schools in a league table? Is it just exam results? And is that fair? If a school is able to cream off the best pupils from its surrounding area, won't that mean that it's automatically going to top the table? And so is that a reflection of the school's ability to teach, or is it just a reflection of their ability to hoover up all the best students? Another policy has been to encourage private investors to come into schools and put money in. And this has enabled schools to gain advantages, which then makes them more attractive to pupils when schools are competing for pupils. Governments have set up the Academy programme in England, which is not available in Wales. And the Academy programme is a way of taking schools out of local authority control, giving them to private companies or charities, so that they can try and do the process of running a school in a better way, providing better services and hopefully getting better results in this competition. Government has also tried to offer parents a choice of schools, and there are a number of controversial ways that this has been done. An obvious way to do this has been for schools to offer places, but only to students within a certain catchment area, so within, say, a 3-mile radius of the school, for example. And this works most of the time. However, what happens if, for any reason, there are less students than normal in a 3-mile radius of a school? What's it supposed to do? And in the interest of competition, what if schools want to compete for students who live further away, for example, who maybe live in another school's catchment? So the government is trying to open up the ways that schools can compete, and so therefore open up the choice for parents. Governments publish schools' GCSE and A-level results in the league tables, which is an easy way for parents to try to compare one school against another. And another thing that the government have done is they've made the inspection reports from Ofsted in England and Estyn in Wales public, so that parents can inspect them and get another take on whether this is a good school or not that they're thinking of sending their child to. Imagine then that you're parents and you're ambitious for your children. You want them to go to a good school and do well. So I want you to pause this video in a second and list 5 things that you would look for in a school as you're thinking of making your choices for your child. How would you set about judging a school or finding out which was the best school? Okay, so 5 things that you would look for to work out which school is the best for your student. Okay, write them down, pause it now, write them down, and unpause when you're done. So hopefully then you've unpaused because you've just written down your 5 things, and so now we have an idea about what you might look for. Hold that thought. Okay. Now we've got some examples from a little while ago of some of the things that parents got up to and some of the things they were subjected to, trying to compete for places in schools. So let's just take a look at some of them. This is from 2008, about parents lying to get school places. Increasing number of parents have been caught trying to cheat to get places for their children at popular schools. People lying about where they live, pretending that they live within a catchment area, which technically is breaking the law. Out of 31 councils that were surveyed, 24 said they'd seen an increase in cheating. Okay, I'm going to put the link to this article in the below the video on YouTube, and so you'll be able to read that at your leisure. The next one, a council admitting that they spied on a family. They used laws to track criminals and terrorists to find out if a family really did live in the school catchment area. Okay, so this is quite serious stuff. They used the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, RIPA, on 6 occasions in total. 3 of those were for suspected fraudulent school place applications. Fascinating, isn't it? The lengths that people go to, and councils. Here's an example of a story that was controversial at the time. In Brighton, some secondary schools decided that they would try and allocate places by lottery. The council decided that the catchment system was unfair, and so they would allocate by lottery. The big problem with that was that what if you lived on the other side of town to the school that you won a place in the lottery? How on earth were you supposed to get your child there? So it didn't really work very well. Here's an example that a lottery system used in Scotland to allocate places to new pupils living outside the catchment area. Okay, and a BBC News story about faith schools. The idea that faith schools are becoming even more popular because they are a way of getting round the restrictions on selection of pupils. So because faith schools are allowed to select pupils, then this is considered to be a way that schools can not select pupils that are perhaps disruptive or low ability. And so they can focus on higher ability. It's like grammar schools by the back door. So faith schools became another route for people to get a good education. The irony then was all sorts of people pretending that they were religious or that they had a particular faith. And so this article is all about how people struggling to prove that they were religious, but how often they went to church or what they did for their local community, etc., etc. Fascinating stuff. So let's take it from here. Are examination results the best way of telling the differences in the quality of education provided between schools? Okay, is that the best marker of evidence that we can have to decide that this school is better than that school? Have a think about what points in favour of that argument that yes, examinations are the best way of telling the difference in the quality of schools. Write some bullet points in favour of that. Then write some bullet points against that. Write some bullet points that talk about why that might not be the best way of determining whether one school is better than another. Okay, pause the video here while you write down your bullet points for and against. Unpause when you're done. Thank you. Okay. If you were a school in competition with others, what kind of pupils would you want to attract in order to get the best results? Okay. What kind of children would you reject from your school if you had the choice? And what impact has market-led government policy had on schools and schooling? Okay, which is encouraging schools to compete like this with others, to accept and reject, etc. So pause the video here. Please write some responses to those questions. Okay, what kind of pupils would you want to attract, reject, and what impact has this marketisation had on schools and schooling, in your opinion? Write your answers. Pause the video now. Unpause when you're done. Right. So we mustn't forget that there is an independent sector in the UK as well. Britain has a fee-paying sector in education. It's known as the independent sector, and it's basically all the private schools and boarding schools that you might be familiar with. This is where parents pay money to the school, and the school is run as a business, although technically these schools are registered as charities, so they avoid paying tax, and they get all sorts of other benefits. So they benefit from large amounts of tax-free income because they qualify as charities. A lot of people have argued that perhaps because they're run as businesses but registered as charities, perhaps that's a little bit unfair, and therefore they should perhaps register as businesses and pay proper tax. But the private schools have obviously said that they wouldn't be able to afford to do all the wonderful things they do if they had to pay tax. So it's an ongoing argument. Now, some of the best of these private schools have excellent results, but there are many schools with limited facilities and poor pay for teachers as well. So does that mean there's a wide variety of equality of opportunity, i.e. not equality? So there's a wide variety of access to opportunity. Some people have got access to amazing things and other people not. The other thing that independent schools can do is they can select their pupils from exam tests and ability tests, and they can train them from a young age to apply to the best universities, which if you're a parent and you're paying a lot of money to send your child to an independent school, is that really what you're paying for? You're paying for a golden ticket to get into university, okay? And especially the best universities. So are these the best schools or the best pupils? The problem is, it's difficult to know whether schools that get good exam results are actually the best schools. Carl Turner found that schools with high percentages of pupils with free school meals were unlikely to get good inspection reports. Let's think about this. Schools with high percentages of pupils that have free school meals, so they're from perhaps more socially deprived backgrounds, they are unlikely to get good inspection reports. Why might that be? Schools with the best exam results and therefore perhaps the best inspection reports, tend to be single-sex, female, fee-paying, or in very wealthy areas which select their pupils. So there are three indicators there. Single-sex female schools. Why is that a marker of success? Fee-paying. Why is that an indicator of success in education? Or schools that are in very wealthy areas which may select their pupils. So is that the best school or the best pupils? Gorard and Timms. Stephen Gorard and Peter Timms in 2006 did some research and found that pupils' examination results of schools' positions in league tables are affected by family wealth and pupils' prior ability. This relationship might be to do with factors that are beyond the control of parents. Things like poor diet, poor health, and lack of resources might play a significant part in the abilities of students later on. And coupled with family wealth and being like the opposite effect, if you like, of poor diet, poor health, and lack of resources, plenty of resources, good health, good diet, that go hand in hand with family wealth, then there seems to be an unfair advantage for pupils from the wealthy family backgrounds. So what we've looked at is that not all schools are equally as good. Schools with the best results generally have middle class and wealthy students. Some people in Britain can afford expensive schools where they pay fees, and sometimes those fees are 16, 20 or more £1,000 per year. And it's possible that these results that they get that are very good are to do with the quality of the students, i.e. if you're able to select the best students to attend, then you're going to get better results than if you were only able to select the worst. And this is rather to do with the quality of the students than the quality of the teaching and the education that's offered. As a task, could you write a paragraph in answer to the following question? So in a moment, pause the video and write a paragraph in answer to this question. And what you want is to show clear evidence of AO1, knowledge and understanding, and AO2, which is evidence and examples and some named sociologists, if you can, in your paragraph. And the question is, assess the view that competition between schools will encourage better education for pupils. Assess the view that competition between schools will encourage better education for pupils. Okay, so pause the video now, write your paragraph, and then unpause when you're done. One of the things that you could do, and I will put the links in below the video in the description, is find out more about alternative schools that exist in the UK. So one of those is Summerhill School, one of the most famous alternative schools in the country. Okay, so there are some video clips that you can follow up on and watch to do with that, to see how else could we run schools. And one of the things you could do is you find the websites of the following schools and find out about what student experiences are like for pupils that go there. So Eton College is one, and Summerhill School would be another. Which one would you prefer to send your child to, and why? Okay, so there's a really good little exercise. Do some research on Eton and Summerhill. Which one would you prefer to send your child to, and why? Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.